My mother-in-law blaming me for not having kids, determined to kick me out with nothing. On my divorce day, she proudly showed me the ultrasound of Wesley's pregnant girlfriend. In response, I calmly revealed his premarital medical report. Wesley Wick, male, diagnosed with congenital azoospermia. I don't want a man who can't have children, I said, watching their smiles fade. Wesley and I met in college and got together after graduation. After graduation, my salary wasn't high, barely enough to make ends meet. We had to rent a shabby, unfinished apartment. Wesley and I worked at the same company. After work, he would drive me home, and during holidays, he would give me little gifts. If nothing else, he would at least take me out for hamburgers. I grew up in the shadows of neglect, my parents absent and my childhood devoid of wealth or stability. The only beacon in my turbulent life was my grandmother as a child. Others would say I was a wild child that grandma picked up. I never believed them. After grandma passed away, I had no home, so I envied those who did. Because I lacked love growing up, I became increasingly dependent on Wesley. When we were dating, he was gentle and considerate, always taking care of my feelings, never looking down on my family or background. I was young and mistook his cheap kindness for love. When he proposed, I developed mutism due to childhood trauma. My parents, ashamed of my condition, forced me to marry my sister Olivia's comatose fiancé, Ethan, in her place. After 3 years of my devoted care, Ethan miraculously woke up. But the first thing he did upon waking was to demand a divorce. He mistook Olivia for the one who had cared for him these 3 years, declaring you would marry no one but her. Later, I overheard his best friend explaining to him that it was actually I who had cared for him all this time. He just smiled nonchalantly and said, I already that, but my wife can't be a mute. Ethan had been in a coma for 3 years. When he woke up, the first person he saw was me, but his eyes were filled with disappointment. I didn't notice the disappointment in his eyes. Overjoyed, I helped him sit up and shared the good news in our friends group chat. Soon, the hospital room was crowded with people, and I, the wife who had cared for Ethan for 3 years, was pushed to the corner, completely ignored. Olivia arrived late, wearing a beautiful blue evening gown, looking like she had just come from a party. Ethan grabbed Olivia's hand, his eyes red-rimmed. Honey, you've suffered so much these 3 years. At these words, everyone in the room was stunned, as if the air had frozen. I stood to the side, fidgeting with my clothes, unable to speak up for myself, all because of my mutism. His friend awkwardly explained.